Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's John Davis, and I am here with my lovely co-host, Tamara Zoner. Hello, Tamara. How are you?
Hello, John. I'm great. How are you?
I am great. I am very excited about lots of different things. For those of you who don't know, Tamara has this amazing thing she calls the passion test, and I'm about to go through that process. So I think you guys ought to hop on board and do one with me. So jump out there and do the passion test with Tamara. Tamara and I were talking about topics, and I found a list called 20 questions for every spiritual seeker. And so I had these 20 questions and I pulled them up. And first of all, we decided that number 17 was the best. It was the one where you guys have to use your remote viewing because it's a non-verbally by motion or gesture, act out what you believe to be the current condition of the world. So you guys get to practice your remote viewing, and yeah, we're not going to do that with it. So today what we're going to do.
I thought that was the funniest for a pod.
Right. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take some of these questions and just do a shotgun approach to the Spirit Cafe today. We're going to put a bunch of pellets out there and just go off on random topics and see how that plays out. And by the way, if you really like these kind of things with lots of questions and lots of answers, and you have a specific question, make sure you just let us know, because we really would like to get a lot more questions in, because this podcast is supposed to be very interactive. It is about us all together, coming together in a cafe and having lovely conversations about spirituality. So are you ready to do this, Tamara?
I'm ready. Spirit Cafe Rapid Fire.
I love that. Spirit Cafe Rapid Fire. All right, so I'm just going to grab random questions here. I think I'm going to start with the one that you and I both found interesting, but I'm going to word it slightly differently.
Okay.
The original question was, is current religion serving its purpose? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to change it to, does religion itself serve a purpose?
Oh, yeah. I like that better, because as you read the original, I thought, well, what's the purpose it's supposed to serve?
Right. Does religion itself serve a purpose? For me, when I think about that question, I think about it from a very unique perspective, because I find that most religions, when you look at religions in general, religions are based not around God. They're based around the representation of God, or a representative of God. Christianity is Jesus, Islam is Muhammad, Baha'i is Baha'u'llah, and even you go back further, Judaism is more about God, but they really focus in on Moses and the prophets and all that. So I find that it's less about a bigger spiritual source and more about earthly representations. Mm-hmm. And so those representations are now thousands of years old from a patriarchal society. So to me, our world is shifting in such broad ways. We're getting so much more equality, and Kamala Harris is now our vice president. That says so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
So things are getting away from the patriarchy. It's getting away from the ideas of ancient medieval times, which is the issue they're having in Afghanistan right now. Mm-hmm. Is the Afghan government is trying to move progressively forward, and the Taliban's taking the country back over with medieval thoughts, mm-hmm. right? So the question then becomes, does it really serve a purpose? And is it, instead of serving a purpose, is it detrimental?
Well, what's your answer? What do you think?
To me, I think it's detrimental, because even Muhammad, even Jesus, all those guys said that the power was within you, and it was your personal connection to source. And when you focus on written words from 2,000 years ago as fact, you are literally living 2,000 years ago,
Mhm.
as opposed to having a personal experience now. And so I go to a Catholic, I love going to Catholic masses because I just think they're pretty. You know, I
They
like the
are
music,
pretty.
and I like the incense, I like the music, I like all the stuff. But you know, especially on holidays, you know, regular mass, whatever. But um, but for me, it doesn't really serve a purpose, because my connection to my God, my spirituality, my source, is every moment of every day.
Mhm.
And it's not Sunday morning, you know. And I think religion, to me, is very limited in its scope. And as Shakespeare would say, there's more thing in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. What's your
True.
thought?
Well, if I'm considering modern day religion,
Mhm.
I do think there is a purpose, but the purpose has really nothing to do with the religion. The purpose has to do with community.
Yeah,
And so I think that those people who are still drawn to churches and religion are seeking community of like minds and a way to connect with other people. Church is an easy one. Religion is an easy one. Oh, we believe the same thing, so therefore we'll be friends. And I've got a built-in, family in this world that's so separate right now.
right,
And
right,
to me, that's like the modern day purpose. So if there's something good coming out of religion right now, it would be at least that sense of connection and community.
right, right.
Yeah, I don't really think that God has much to do with
Right,
it.
right.
You
I
know,
completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. Do you think there's any detriment to it?
yes, I do. Because there's so much judgment and guilt, and if you're not this, then go to hell. I think that all that crap can just go, right?
Mm,
Can we not just come together in community of fellowship and humanity without all the judgment and sin and you're worthless until you're worth something in the eyes of God? I mean, we can let that all go, in my opinion. It's my
right, right.
hope my mom doesn't listen to this one because she'll go cry for a week. But
See, I don't. The problem that I have is my mom's crossover, so she's hearing
she's
everything.
hearing everything. Yeah,
So, but
yeah.
she probably agrees with what we're talking about because she was a very open-minded person. Um, I think the detriment really comes when I see. It's interesting because when I used to travel the country speaking in metaphysical centers, and I used to talk about what my beliefs were, I was always harshly judged by
Mm,
Christians because they put their faith and their belief in their doctrines of their religion,
mhm.
and everybody else is wrong.
Yes.
And everybody else is wrong. If you don't believe what I believe, you're wrong. And I think having a community of people who believe that everybody else is wrong is dangerous
I do
because
too.
it's an army,
It
you
is,
know.
and it starts so young. I can remember being in a classroom and in elementary school. I don't remember what grade, second or third or fourth grade, and looking at my friend who was not Catholic. She was Protestant, I think, and I was like, "Oh, that's so sad for her." She's
Right. Right.
right. She's not. She doesn't get to go to heaven, because she's not Catholic. Like, what? Makes no sense.
Right.
Which
It
is
makes
why
no
ultimately I
sense at all.
rejected the church. But yeah. So there
Well,
are there are.
what's really interesting is specifically Catholicism too.
Mm,
Catholicism, and this is going to be very controversial when I say this. Catholicism is the most damaging religion that's ever hit the face of the earth.
mhm.
And let me tell you, right now, archaeologically in South America, they are discovering that South America used to be filled with massive cities before the conquistadors came to spread Christianity, to spread Catholicism in particular,
Right.
right?
Right.
They are now discovering that huge tracts of the Amazon were massive cities, and they were wiped out by first them coming there and taking their gold, second by them spreading uh, the diseases that came with them on the boats, right? So their mission to spread Catholicism around the world killed out massive. They're saying that like a lot of the native races that were down there were just wiped out by smallpox, you
Wow.
know. And then you look at the Native Americans, right? The United States is a country of immigrants. It started with the Protestants coming, right? But
Mhm.
over the course of time, Native Americans have been pushed. You know, when in my family, there's someone we just discovered genealogy, you know, bloodline wise, DNA wise, that we don't have Native American blood, but we
Mhm.
always thought we did have because we had one person in our ancestry whose name was Cloud, and when we used to all be very much into the research about her, the Lenni Lenape tribe that she was from. She was from the
Okay.
Lenni Lenape tribe, which
Yeah.
is from the Delaware, Pennsylvania. You know where the Lenni Lenape tribe is now? Oklahoma.
Okay.
They were forced on the Trail of Tears to leave the East Coast, right? And the people coming from overseas were coming in the name of God and Christianity and were carrying a cross when they hit the land, right?
Mhm.
There's more damage that has been done by Christianity than any other religion. Even in the modern day, George Bush told the Saudi prince, God told him to invade Iraq,
Right.
right? And the God of George Bush was a Christian God.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that religion has been probably the most detrimental thing in the world.
Yeah, I would say it's far more detrimental than beneficial.
Yeah, and
Oh.
I think that people need to start to realize that if God is love, as the Apostle John said, then we need to get back to what God is, as opposed to all the other junk.
Mhm. Well, and perhaps that's why religion is falling out of favor for the majority of at least Americans, right? So,
And what I find really fascinating about that question is you know, about that statement is that there's the old famous saying. They asked Mother Teresa if she would go to an anti-war rally, and she said, no, have a peace rally and I'll come, right?
mhm,
What you focus on, you expand,
mhm,
right? And then all of these leaders around the world started knocking down Islam or Muslims.
mhm.
You know, when you look right now at faith around the world, Christianity and all the others are waning, and Islam is not,
Mm.
because they're putting so much focus on it that people are going, well, what is Islam? And people are
Yes.
going and studying Islam, and they're suddenly realizing, like Muhammad said, he who knows not kindness has no faith, right?
Mhm.
So they start seeing all these beautiful things that Muhammad said, and they start creating this new direction. And so just by focusing on something as a negative, it made people naturally gravitate to it. So
Mhm.
I look forward to the day when I can stand in a room and everybody there has their own individual belief, but we all accept each other.
Mhm.
And right now that's it's not the case.
Right.
It's just not the
Right. That
case.
would be a beautiful thing. All right. That wasn't too rapid fire. Let's go.
That wasn't too, I'm sorry, that was a deep one. You're right. Right. So another one. Okay.
We gotta get at least 4 of these in.
Okay. All right. All right. So oh, here you go. What is the relationship between science and religion? You go first.
Oh, I think the relationship is one backing up the other, in fact. Um, Not necessarily religion, but spirituality, right? So science is proving so much of what spiritual thinkers have been saying, about energy and how matter can change based on perception and how everything is connected. It's, I think, such fabulous evidence for the truth that so many of us believe and just kind of know in our hearts.
Right. And from when I look at those two topics, science and religion, I don't think one exists without the other,
Mhm.
right? Because religion is being proven by science, and science can't necessarily exist um without spirituality, not
Right.
necessarily religion,
That,
right?
right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think spirituality is, now when I look at the science and religion, the relationship between science and religion is interesting because they can prove scientifically that there was a Christian movement back in the 2,000 years ago, because they can do all the archaeology and all the science behind that. But
Right.
when it comes to spirituality, we've gone
Yeah,
to a
they're two different
whole
things.
two different things, right? So
In
for
fact, I
me,
think science can discredit religion.
yes, I think so too.
So
And
that's
so,
why religious people are so afraid of science.
and modern science can't prove spirituality, because a great portion of spirituality is based upon a faith, a leap of faith.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that's so fascinating by noetic science, is the fact that the guy who started noetic science had a transcendental experience that he couldn't explain, and he spent his life trying to explain it. So
Yeah,
they're making this leap right now. And years ago, Edgar Cayce said that a new science would come up.
right.
In the 30s, he said this, that would bridge the gap between science and spirituality, which I think
Okay,
is
and I
really
have a question
fascinating.
off the list for you. What is the difference between quantum physics and noetic science?
Quantum physics is the atoms and the energy and all that stuff, and it is the scientific measurement of things. Noetic science is, I had a experience that's unexplainable. How can I explain it? Within the realm of physics.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a you have, well, noetic science is trying to prove metaphysics through quantum physics. Does that make sense?
Okay. That's a
Okay.
good definition. Yes,
Okay.
that makes sense.
So it's slightly different, but it is, on very definition, the gap. It is the leap between the two, which I think is interesting. I think that somebody asked me the other day a very interesting question. He said, science has proven that this, that's the, and I said, well, let me ask you a simple question. Has science really proven that, or has a scientist proven that? Because right now you look at anything, there are scientists on both sides who argue all the time.
Right.
So has science proven it, or has a scientist brought a theory forward?
Mhm.
Right.
That
So
worked once or twice for him.
right. And I said, if you think about this, scientists have proven that the universe is expanding, or our galaxy is expanding, our universe is expanding. But scientists haven't proven the reason it's expanding is because we keep thinking bigger thoughts.
Mhm.
They can't prove that, right? So we keep thinking bigger thoughts, so everything's expanding because our consciousness is expanding. That's one way of looking at it from a spiritual perspective,
I
right?
like it.
So they go, well, no, it's because of the Big Bang. I said, well, what was before the Big Bang? And they have nothing they can say, because there isn't just some massive solid thing that exploded, right?
Right.
So it's an interesting question. Let me jump over to, let's see if I can find another one here.
Okay.
Okay. What is our greatest distraction?
Oh, there's so many things that just came into my head, but I would say, in fact, our greatest distraction is our suffering
Mm.
and
And
our
I would look
addiction to it.
right, and I would frame it slightly differently. I would say our greatest distraction is fear in general, because our suffering is fear, in my opinion. So
Right.
I
Didn't
think,
we do a whole topic on that one day?
yeah, I think
Go back and
the
listen to
whole,
that one.
the balance of love and fear, and I think the
Yeah.
greatest, and we are the ones who allow ourselves to go to that place. Let me see if I can find another one here.
You got 20. Of course you can.
I can. I'm trying to find ones that actually have a decent. Why is there poverty and suffering in the world?
We need contrast.
We need contrast. We need something good. I agree with that. I also think that there's poverty and suffering in the world because we believe there's poverty and suffering in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about poverty, it's because of the fact that we might have a lack mentality because of our subconscious beliefs.
Sure.
And we think about, I know people who have struggled their whole life, finally got to the point where everything was going great, and they had a tragic thing that knocked them back down to
Of course, because they have this set point, right? And
right.
unless you do the mindset work and the inner work and the healing work to comfortably up level your game, you're going to fall right back down to where you were. It's like those guys who win the lottery and a year later the money's gone because
right.
their nervous system, their soul, like that's not what they're ready for. That's not what they can handle at this point.
Right.
And so some of us are in a lack mentality, and we have to make our way out of it through concerted effort. in order to be open to receiving more.
I love that analogy. Did you know that over 30% of lottery winners are bankrupt within 5 years?
Yeah, bankrupt even, not just back to the
Bankrupt
base, but bankrupt.
within 5 years. Here is a question that I think is going to be a pithy one. Is war justifiable? I'll jump into that one first.
Yeah, you go for it.
The question presupposes that war is justifiable, because it says when is war justifiable is what it says.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not when is war justifiable. So it presupposes that war is justifiable. Now, when I look at this statement, you know, I believe that war is an interesting thing, because war oftentimes are fought for monetary gain. We went into Iraq so that Halliburton could make a lot of money, in my opinion. And I've been on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan, and I saw how Halliburton was making the money, right? They had no bid contracts. There was no other reason to go in, and now, you know, they discovered that. So that's the political aspect of it. But was it justifiable to go in? No, it wasn't justifiable to go in my opinion. I think war is justifiable when love is being so completely and egregiously affronted. When you find people who are being decapitated or having genital mutilation, you know, when love is being assaulted, the most loving thing we can do is go stop the people who are doing that unloving thing.
I would have to agree with that. I was thinking to myself, I'm over here with Mother Teresa at the peace rally, and you know, I don't believe that violence is a solution for violence. And you're right, though. I mean, sometimes the only way to stop atrocity is by committing some ourselves. So,
well, and it doesn't have to be necessarily be an atrocity. You know, the reality of it is if I have one person who is committing hundreds of unloving acts and damaging hundreds of people, is it really an atrocity to stop that person? You know?
no, I mean, but innocent people will always end up.
Yes. Yeah,
you know.
that's what, you know, and it's interesting when you look at humanitarian. Here's an interesting humanitarian munitions, and so the British came up with an amazing bomb. Okay, and it has no explosives in it. And it is a guided missile filled with 2,000 pounds of concrete. Right. So they see the one tank attacking the one city, they lock onto it, and they drop 2,000 pounds on it.
Wow.
Right. But there's no casualties, no peripherals, no civilians getting hurt. It's, you know, harmed. That just that tank is gone.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, that's a much more humane way of dealing with it. But like when the shock and awe happened. Now, I don't know if you remember this at all. At the very beginning of the Iraq War, there was this thing called the shock and awe. And basically, the U.S. went into Baghdad and bombed them for about 20 minutes, bombed the city of Baghdad for 20 minutes. It was all over the news. It was massive explosions. And when I was in Iraq, was talking to a colonel. He said, well, you know what the shock and awe was? I go, no, what? He says, that was the U.S. getting rid of old munitions. He said, we were using up stuff we couldn't use anymore. He says, there were bombs dropped on Baghdad that were built in World War II.
Wow.
Right? They were just, you know, getting rid of stuff so they could build new. And so it wasn't necessary to blow up the entire town. Right. So that's not justifiable, no. in my opinion. And so when is war justifiable? I think war is justified. I mean, for instance, if I'm walking down the street and I see a woman being attacked, or someone weaker being attacked, or someone in general being attacked and can't defend themselves, I'm going to jump in. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do it because it's the loving thing to do.
Right.
You know, and I often say to people is sometimes being the consequence is the loving thing to do, because that person needed the consequence. Mm-hmm. So that's my answer.
All right.
Right.
Give us yours on Facebook, people. We want to hear it.
Yeah. Oh God, that'd be great. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Um, what is the meaning of life, Tamara Zoner? I've been wanting to ask you that forever. What is the meaning of life?
My daughter, my oldest, asked me this question when she was about 5 years old.
And for those of you who are dorks like me, the answer is 42.
I have that book right next to my bed right now. The answer is 42. And if you're not familiar with that answer, then in my opinion, and this is what I told my daughter, the meaning of life is for you to figure out what your meaning in life is.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Not for anyone to tell you. It is whatever you discover it to be.
Right. I think, yeah, I agree with you. And I also like the Monty Python answer of people aren't wearing enough hats. Um, um,
I think
but
I'll go do a silly walk after this. I don't know.
um, what is what is the meaning of life? To me, the meaning of life is being and living fully, authentically you,
Yes.
and being accepted for who you are. And when you find yourself in people who aren't accepting you, finding your tribe who do accept you, and creating that meaning of creating a loving experience in the world. That's my whole life, right? To be me, right?
I love that. And I love how you sort of phrase that, which I cannot requote, but if you're not being accepted by the people you're surrounded by, you don't change yourself to be accepted. You leave and you find the people who accept you just as you are. It's so much richer.
Absolutely. And the idea of changing yourself, that's one struggle I've had in my life. I've changed myself for people. And it's exhausting. It's damaging to your soul, in my opinion.
Yes.
I know that in the changes that I've made in my life for ex-wives, I was less and less happy as time went on because I wasn't me. Exactly. And now it's like, I feel so free now because I'm fully me. And it's so funny because, I'm one of these guys who will turn on It's a Wonderful Life and bawl my eyes out at the ending. When they start coming in the door with all the money, I'm just crying like crazy. Right? I'm one of those sappy guys, right? Okay. But I know guys who would totally mock me for that moment because it's not manly or whatever. In my screw them, in my opinion, because I'm going to be me, and if that's what I feel. There's an episode of West Wing. It's another Christmas episode where the one character, Toby, ends up arranging a burial for a homeless veteran, and I can't get through that episode without just bawling my eyes out because it is so beautiful and so loving what he's done. I just sit there and it's like it's just totally a mess, right? Yeah. But I'm going to be me, and I'm one of those guys who like literally will put it on Facebook. Well, didn't get through Wonderful Life again, I don't care what people think of me, because I'm going to be me.
Because you like you, and that's the most important thing. When we finally like ourselves enough to say, no, you don't like me. That's cool. I'll go somewhere else, man.
All right. Are you ready? Another
one?
What does it mean to live in the present moment?
Oh, well, usually it means you really have no idea what else is going on, which is a cool way to be sometimes. It is where you are neither in the future nor in the past, and everything is right now, which means you're fully immersed in whatever it is you're doing in this moment, and you're like fully alive and fully aligned, and just everything is momentous because it's all right now, and there's no distracted parts of you. It's all very it's in it 100%. Like you feel it, like everything's vibrating, everything's just in it. No matter if it's a good, bad, or ugly situation, it doesn't even matter. It's just you're all in right here, right now, and no other time exists.
Right, right. The first question I would ask, and I would want our audience to ponder, is when aren't you in your present moment?
Mm.
Because
Well,
because
lots of people aren't all the time, right? Because
well, are they or aren't they?
their
They're
physicality is in the present moment, but their
right, right.
brains are in, 2 days from now when they have an important meeting.
Exactly. But the thing is, their creative moment is the only moment they live.
Mhm,
And if they put their mind in the future, they're not actually creating, they're stagnant. And if they put
mhm,
their mind in the past, they're not actually creating, they're stagnant. And
mhm.
if I stay in this moment and I go, well, I am stagnant, I am creating in my present moment stagnant. So I think to be firmly present means you need to really assess what your life is. And
Mhm.
what it means to be present is to say, right now, here today, I am this and I
Mhm.
am living this and I have these goals for the future, but I'm not pining for that and I'm not
Oh,
struggling
yeah.
to get to that and I'm not hoping for that or wanting or wishing or needing or all that stuff. I'm not living here longing for something else,
Mhm,
or I'm not living here thinking about the person who victimized me in the past
mhm.
and living by their negative experiences back there. Because if I stay here present and focus on anything on any other timeline, then I'm just recreating or creating
Right.
something that's not active. And we have
Yeah.
to get very present moment active. The I am moment is the only moment you
Yeah.
have. And I think it's really I agree with you on everything you said. I'm just looking at a different
And I
perspective.
agree with you.
Yeah. Well, see, that's why we're co-hosts. You know what I mean? So,
Do you agree with us, listeners? What do you think?
yeah.
Can you
There
tell
you
we
go.
really want to hear from you?
Can you tell? We really do want to hear from you. We really want to create something amazing.
I
Um,
am feeling all the responses that we're getting on our Facebook page right
I
now.
am loving responding to them all too.
Right now. Yeah, me too.
Um, da, 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 da. Why are so many people depressed?
Because they're disconnected from their true selves.
Bam, done. All right, moving on.
Move on.
um, and the next question is ridiculous because it's the same as the last one. So what are we also afraid of?
Disconnection and connection.
Right, right. Uh, how would God want us to respond to aggression and terrorism?
Oh, blech, I hate that question. Maybe
It's a horrible question. How would
I'm
how would God want us to? Now, I'm going to throw a weird little twist on
do it.
this.
Okay.
Um, God doesn't want us to do anything but create. And
Mm,
so somebody created aggression and terrorism. What are we going to create with it? Now, I can create escalation and more turmoil, or I can create a pathway out of aggression and terrorism. Um, for instance, when you look at terrorism in general, um, most people nowadays, when you say terrorist, they link it to Islam, and that's not
not the same.
that's not the same thing.
Not
And
equivalent.
in actuality, um, especially here in the United States, more death has been created by Christian terrorists,
Mhm,
like Timothy McVeigh and all those guys. Adolf Hitler was a Christian, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
it's about how would he want us to respond to aggression, the same way he always said, you know, with love.
Mhm.
That person is reacting and putting out that because there's something in them that is fearful and hateful, and the
Right.
only way you negate that is to give it love.
Yep.
And you have to give it love. Because if you go at it with hate and anger, it's only going to escalate.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Peace,
all
love,
right.
and understanding, dude.
All right.
Mhm.
That's a so well, why don't you answer this one while I try to find another one?
Uh-oh.
Describe God.
Oh, geez. I don't think God has form, so um, I cannot.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. That is what religions in general have struggled with their entire life, describing God.
Yeah, how do you
And
describe God? Well, I guess I'm thinking physical. There is no physical God, so It's I mean, we had a whole topic on this one too. All that is.
Right.
Love.
Everything you see.
Yeah.
Describe God. Open your eyes and look at your room. What you're seeing is God.
Yeah.
That's the
Everything.
description of God.
Look in the mirror. What you're seeing is God.
Right. Everything is God.
Yeah.
There you go. Great answer. What prevents people from living to their full potential?
I'll go right back to fear on that one.
It's interesting how it always seems to come back to fear, doesn't it? It always drops back into that place of fear. And Buddha says the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear. And so fear is really our struggle. Sufism talks about the struggle against the veil of fear, right? So it's really interesting how even when we answer these questions, it always drops back to fear in some form. But I'm going to kind of build on this in a second here, but I think there is only one fear,
which is
the fear of not being loved. Because if you look at the idea of God is love, and our struggle, and Sufism especially talks about the idea of struggling against the veil. God is on one side of the veil, we're on the other side of the veil, and the veil is our fear. But when you look at stuff like people say, well, how is the fear of a tiger eating me the fear of not being loved? Well, you're afraid the tiger's not going to love you, number one. No, but number two, you're or the fear of death. How about that? How's that? Well, you're afraid that you're going to get to the other side and it's not going to be a loving place. Right. That's what the whole to be or not to be speech is about. So I really believe that love, and when I say love, people get really trapped into that word love, and they think about romantic love or aspects of love. We're talking about a bright vibration, a bright loving feeling. And a lot of people will mistake respect for love, or just acceptance in general for love. But it comes down to the fact that, we're afraid that, for instance, when I bring a person on stage in the Corporate Action Hero, I bring the most timid person on stage that I can find. They walk on stage. I know right away what their fear is. The fear is being afraid of being in front of that audience, being in front of their peers. So they walk on stage and looking stupid. Yep. So they want the audience to accept them and love them and think they're great. So the first thing I do is I turn to the audience and I say, isn't she a rock star? And they cheer. So I immediately negate the fear. Right. That's the whole stage already. Right. That's the whole thing I'm doing the whole time. And the other thing is at the end of that program, at one point, I'm holding a target in my hand and they're holding a whip in their hand. Right. Right. And I say to them, I look them right in the eye and I say, I promise you're not going to hurt me. Because I know their fear is they're going to hurt me. Right. Well, in that fear, they're going to look bad in front of their people, and I'm not going to like them. Right. So this idea of there is only one real fear, and it's the fear of not being loved, in my opinion, is provable in almost people ask me all the time, well, what about this? And I can find that fear of not being loved every time. And if you think you can stump me on that one, ask a question and I'll give you the answer. I do have another follow-up question though. Have you ever been whipped in the face? I got to see this in action, people, and I forget who John called up on stage at the corporate event I was at, but I was afraid for her. Well, let me show you an interesting thing. If you can look right here, there's a lump right here. Okay. On my nose. I broke my nose with a bullwhip. Oh, you broke your own nose? Broke my own nose. You see, when you're cracking a whip, you got this big long thong with all the, not the kind of thong I'm wearing, but the other one. You'll have to tune in on the YouTube channel. You can see that. Try not to visualize. Anyway, when you're cracking a whip, the end of the whip, if it gets caught under your shoe, all the energy that you have in the whip suddenly stops, but the energy has to go somewhere. And what it does is it yanks right at your face. And so I went kapow, pow, and I smacked myself right in the nose and broke it on stage during a show. Oh no. On stage during a show. And a buddy of mine was in the audience and I looked at him and I went, I think I broke my nose. I mouthed it to him. He starts laughing. I
Nice
finished
friend.
finished the whole show out.
You weren't bleeding?
Oh no. Well, I did a little bit, not a lot, but it was,
Wow.
but if you look, my nose still has a big bump right here from the broken nose. The only other time that it came close to hitting me in the face was, and you ladies will enjoy this, was the only time I chose a man to come to the stage. Because a man, you put a whip in his hand, the testosterone kicks in and he goes crazy. And he almost hit me in the face. And it was like, I leaned my head back because I saw it coming. I leaned my head back and it cracked right here. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But other than that, I've never been hurt. And and in the idea of, let's say, but I've had a couple of times where they've wrapped my arm by accident.
Okay.
Right, which is, it doesn't hurt at all. The only time it will really hurt is if the end of the whip gets you.
Gotcha.
Because I've bloodied myself with the whip. Anyway, we went off on a tangent there.
Yeah, I'm trying not to go off on different tangents about whips.
No, it's good. It's okay. I think. Okay, you have a question?
No, I don't have another one. Your next question, and we're probably getting close to the last question.
Yeah. So this will be the last question. I'll try to find one that's a good last question.
Okay.
Are we truly all one?
Yes. That is my final answer.
That is your final answer. Well, I'll take spirituality for $400.
He knows the answer now.
There you go. Yeah. I don't even coughing like crazy today. Are we all one? Absolutely. We are all one. Everything you see is pure energy. And every time you bump into somebody and they're acting or treating in some way other than, or in any way, it's because they're reacting to you in some form.
Yeah, so it's a reflection. I love this. It's such a liberating idea to actually say, yes, we are all one. If you really ponder that, there's so much freedom in it. So much freedom.
I agree. Well, this has been the almost rapid fire.
The not so rapid fire Spirit Cafe rapid fire.
But I love this format because it was a chance to jump into a whole bunch of different topics.
Yeah,
and
this was
a whole
fun.
bunch of different things.
This is what happens when we don't know what to talk about. We talk about all the things.
and on our next podcast, we're going to be talking about prayer, healing, energy work at a distance, and how does it actually work at a distance. And we're going to have a special guest, Holly Matson, who is a animal Reiki specialist, and she does animal Reiki at a distance. She does it, and her clients are all claiming that their animals are doing really well and coming back from sickness and everything else. And so I think it's going to be very an interesting topic to talk about, the idea of how that distance thing works. And then, of course, having someone who does it will be great. I
can't wait to be a part of that conversation. And as we leave now, I'm going to have Bette Midler stuck in my head.
Bette Midler?
At a distance. And doesn't that song say we are one? I think it does.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I think all songs say that in some form.
Yeah, the world. Oh, I was going to say one. Okay. Anyway, we're having too much fun here today, folks. John is going to ask me in a moment if I want to take us out of here. So I'm just
take us out of here.
So thank you so much for having some fun with us today on this not so rapid fire Soul Cafe. And please do ask us your questions and answer some of these. We want to know what you think. So let us read your comments, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.